Okay, so I used to think that, well, I used to think making biscuits was really hard, and then I practiced making biscuits, and it's really not as hard as I thought, and they're very good when they're homemade. So I decided to try a pie crust, and it turns out that pie crust is very similar to biscuits, and it's not that hard after all. Um, we're going to do like it's a we're going to use cold water pie crust. Um, and I've measured out a cup and a quarter of all-purpose flour, and then I have a teaspoon of salt that I'm going to add to my flour. And then I'm just going to give it a little pulse just to get it kind of mixed in, everything mixed in. And then I'm going to take, and my butter's cold, but I'm just going to use my butter cutter to cut my butter blender, and I'm just going to lay that around on top of the flour. Now this recipe calls for a stick of butter, cold butter, so we like to use half sticks. So I have 2 half sticks that I'm cutting. And then I'm just going to pulse in my food processor. I think the food processor is a great way to go. Keeps your butter cold. And I'm going to pulse until I get the butter to be about the size of a little green pea. Not quite there yet, so I'm going to turn it on low and let it run for a little bit. I am using the dough blender as part of the food processor, right? That's what I'm mixing everything up with. All right, so let's to give that a little shake. And then let's look in there. Just a few more pulses, I think. All right, okay. Got the butter about the size of little green peas. And then I've got ice water here. We're going to measure out a quarter of a cup of ice water. So I'm going to use my spoon to keep from getting a lot of ice, or to keep from getting any ice really into my measuring cup. It's important to use ice water because, one, it helps to keep your butter cold as you are blending the dough. And then as it heats up, the water in the crust will also change into steam, and it'll create air pockets. It's hard for me to do 2 things at one time. So let me go ahead and let me finish my sentence. It'll create air pockets where the steam comes out, and that makes your crust flakier. So I'm gonna run it on low pulse while I just slowly stream in the cold water. You're going to see your dough starting to come together. Got the water in. You may need to take a spatula and kind of push the sides down. We'll see. I think I'm going to stop it for just a minute and give it a good little shake. And check and see if I need to kind of push what's on the sides around. Be patient with it. You can also take it out and push everything together if you get really impatient. If it seems like it's not coming together. We've got cookies in the oven. If they've not been in there, they are going off. How long? So we'll take the cookies out. I'm going to turn that off. We got to get the cookies out. I think they need to go a little bit longer. Sorry about that. About 2 more minutes. I think my dough might be about it's a ball. It's made a little ball. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my dough out of my food processor. There are some little pieces that still are not in the dough ball. So I'm just going to take that out. Kind of press that flat and then reach in. Take my small pieces of dough and fold those into my dough. So my pie dough. Now you don't want to handle this dough a lot because it can make it, you don't want your pie dough to be crusty. Or not crusty, tough. I was thinking about pie crust, pie dough. That was running through my head. So, yeah. Cookies are about ready to take out again. I'm just going to make this into a round disc. And I found like you can make it into a ball and then press it down flat. But the flatter it is in the disc shape, the easier it is to work with when you get ready to take it out and roll it out. So, yep, so soft. I like pie dough because it is so very, very soft. And then I've got my plastic wrap here. I'm going to wrap that dough up. Put it in the refrigerator for about an hour, and then it will be ready to roll out. Thanks. All right, so learning how to make pie crust, right? So we ended up, I had put the pie dough into the refrigerator, and so it's been in there I put it in there yesterday, so it's been a little bit over 24 hours. And when I first get my dough out ready to roll it out, it has to soften up some because it's going to be pretty hard. And then once it gets to where it's slightly pliable, you can begin to roll it out. Now I turn it 90 degrees, and I always start in the middle because I watched a King Arthur video, and they were talking about rolling dough out, and I think I mentioned this before, but to start from the center, and it's something about the way the gluten and the dough, like how it pulls out, and I'm not quite sure, but if you're interested, you could probably look that up. But start from the center and roll in one direction when you're rolling it out. So I'm just going to roll this pie dough out for a while, and you just know that I'm turning after I've rolled it for a while. We are actually going to go, I have a 9-inch pie pan. It's not a deep crust, not the one that I'm rolling this one out for. And so we're going to go 2 inches past that, about 2 to 2.5 inches past the 9 inches. And so I'm going to go out to about 12 inches on my mat that I have here. Right, I think I've actually rolled it out a little bit more than the 12. I've actually gone to almost 14 inches, so I've got a thin crust. Now, what I have found, you'll notice that this edge over here is a little rough, and so I'll probably end up, I've got more of a better circle in this direction, and so I will try to situate the crust in the pie pan such that I can cut that off. It helps. If you can support that crust in some way. So you can use your roller. And then I'm just moving that over my pie pan. So I don't have a deep crust. It's our deep pie pan, just a regular pie pan that we're doing this in. And I'm going to need to leave an overhang of about 2 to 2.5 inches so that I can turn the edge of the pie crust under to make the thicker part. You know how a pie crust is thicker on the part that lays on the pan, and so I'm leaving enough room that I can cut off, the extra, but I also have about 2.5 inches that I'm going to leave to fold under, 2 inches or so. And I don't know about you, and if you do crust a lot, please feel free to give me hints. But I know my crust, it seems like, always shrinks in size. And so I definitely want to leave some pushed over the edge. If that makes sense. So I'm going to try to do this time for sure. So I'm just easing that crust down into the pie pan. Okay. And it's flush. Mostly it's flush against the sides. So this is just a little cutter that I use. I'm just going to eyeball the edges, get them about the same length around. I can tell, and this is something I need to learn how to work on, is getting that crust the same thickness, all the way around. I know I need to work on that because I have some places where it's thinner and some places where it's thicker. I could definitely pinch some of that together. I don't really want to, it's this little cutter's I'm not putting a lot of pressure, and so it's not like it's going to cut my finger or anything. It's not like sharp. But I don't want to run it over my mat either. You can see it's just enough for me to kind of cut that dough away. Okay, all right, I think we're about ready. I am going to use the fork like my grandmother used to make my little decoration around the edge. So I remember being little and she would run her fork like through the flour and then she would just give it a little press into the pie shell around the edges. Again, I've let it hang over a little bit because I've noticed that my pie shell will shrink up when we bake it. I'm not sure why it happens, but okay, there we go. I think it'll do. This is what works for us mostly.